Today I'm making a body for this guy. He's gonna be so happy. I cut the front and back plates for starters. I made the straps much longer than they need to be because I don't yet know how deep the chest is gonna be. Although I decided on the next step to make the base of it an even 6 inches. And oddly enough, the first side panels were identical to that. So just cut 3 6x6 inch squares. If I ever forget to announce the measurements, by the way, the cutting mat is imperial, just count up the squares. I used the square with the air bubble defect on it for the base plate because that'll eventually get covered up. You'll notice that I put a couple of registration marks in there just in case I mix up the order. Somehow, I'd find a way. Things I have misplaced. It's all in the system. Also, I sanded the edges on the chest plates before I glued them because that diamond pattern is just the worst. Yeah, in terms of getting seams to line up. See, if you cut everything right, then you don't have to sand. If you sand everything right, then you don't have to fill in seams later. So keep that in mind when you're distributing your effort. 13 minutes later, I attach the walls. Parts of it are still glossy, which means it hasn't dried enough to attach just yet. So I gotta wait 2 more minutes to do those. 2 minutes later, I attach the back and front plates. Hey, there we go. Look at that. But one reason why I like building with foam is it's kind of its own insulation. When you transport your art pieces, which is what you have to do with them in order to earn a living, they're gonna get mishandled, they're gonna get dropped, and if it's made out of foam, it's its own packaging material. Just the amount of abuse that the battle droid has gone through, and for the most part survived, is amazing. I think the only thing that broke on it was the antenna, which was made of wood. It's a basket! It's a battle basket! Okay, so that edge there is significantly thinner than the other foam that I was using, the floor mat foam. So I'm going to use craft foam, which is essentially the same thing, and cut that down to size. Half of that, so it'd be a 1/4 inch. They come in sheets like this, minus the hole, plus the hole right there. But I want to use the smaller foam offcuts first, just for conservation of supplies. You can see those panels bent inward a little bit, which was a mistake, but it kind of works because, that armpit panel, if you will, is supposed to be bent in on itself on the 3D model. I planned it from the beginning is what I meant to say. Why, you're editing this. You could just edit out your mistakes. Then it won't be cinema verite. Look at you using your media study degree. Hey, does anybody need to know how to load a Bolex? Yeah, that was worth my tuition. I filled in the seams with quick seal. Ideally, this is the final step before painting, but the way my schedule's been working out, I've had to call it a day before I finish building it. I had a few other things that I had to take care of. What? I got goggles. And often I'll find that the quick seal will shrink a little bit as it dries, meaning that I'll need to add multiple layers in anyway. So this is a preventative measure. It'll save me a little bit of time later. Oh, so this is actually kind of important. I should address it now. After I finished making this video, I read the warning label on the back of the quick seal, and it definitely says to avoid skin contact, which wish I'd known that when I started using this material 2 years ago. God, everybody feels they gotta sweep the legs out of the video by going, oh, that's the wrong color, or that's the wrong glue. No one ever brings up safety. Why? It doesn't hurt, although my hands are aging more rapidly than the rest of me. Oh God, I'm gonna be like Picard in that one 80s freeze frame episode where we find out that there's a whole compartment of the spaceship just dedicated to a table. Or like that one guy from Deathbed, the bed that eats people. Somehow I think that TNG is the reference more people are gonna get. Call it a hunch. I know there's a moral here somewhere. Gloves, wear gloves. That's the real moral is to be yourself, but a self that wears gloves. Okay, so in every video from now on where I'm using quick seal and not wearing gloves, then I give you guys permission to yell at me. Please yell at me. William Jakespeare, making the mistakes so you don't have to. Next, I cut the shoulder arches. The outer ones are nice and refined and sanded, and the inner ones are garbage because ain't no one gonna see them. All they are internal support, and internal support is never pretty. Seriously, the inside of the Statue of Liberty is a wreck. I see you, Eiffel. I see you. Isn't this an amazing angle? You don't need a tripod, you need a stack of tools. They're all in boxes, just for context, because I do not have my camera on a pile of wrenches. Although, bet I could make that work. Side tutorial, how to make a tripod out of a pile of wrenches. Or, alternatively, how to destroy a camera using only a pile of wrenches. It doesn't quite line up there, but we do our best, Howard Hughes. Oh God, see, that would be an issue, but I'm gonna do enough coats of paint sealer. Perhaps plastic dip? Probably plastic dip, but it's gonna cover that up eventually. Although again, Star Wars is a dirty dirty universe for oh so many reasons, so it would be perfectly acceptable for there to be some gunk under the armpit of a robot. I am laying this on here way too thick, by the way. Like, you're supposed to clean off your high-tech application tool that used to be part of a fudgesicle. Wipe off the glue before you apply it. However, this can of glue is almost empty. It's starting to solidify because of the oxygen in the can. 10:15. Okay, there we go. That's a torso. I ended up cutting another panel just as an outline for the details on the back. Figuring this out was a lot of just watching Clone Wars episodes that heavily featured the Commando Droids and grabbing still frames from as many conceivable angles as possible. In fact, that's pretty much every replica prop build. It's just difficult with Clone Wars props because in animation, a lot of solid objects bend in ways that solid things shouldn't. Like, I know those droids aren't made of rubber, so you sort of have to fudge the details in order to make it work in reality. Because I don't want to glue it just yet, I moved on to the neck. The neck joints are made out of scrap PVC and a PVC T-joint, which you can find in the plumbing section of your local hardware store. Okay, so the most frequently asked question I get on the Battle Droid series of build videos is, what are the measurements of the neck joints? And the answer is, it doesn't matter. In both that series and this series, I just grabbed some pieces out of my scrap bin that fit together. I mean, I guess anywhere in between 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inch diameter will work. And honestly, I'm just freehanding most of this. The hole I just cut for the neck was traced from the lid of an almond container. You can't get hung up on unnecessary precision, especially when you're building something from a cartoon. Okay, here we are contact cementing again, and already talked about that, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the many Bothans who died to bring us this tutorial, as well as my patrons. Let's do a 21 saber spin salute. Who should be scrolling by right now, including new patron Laura. Laura is single-handedly paying for an entire sheet of EVA foam. So essentially the entire next phase of the video. But in all seriousness, these materials do cost money, the equipment breaks down, and I would really like to do one of these larger builds all at once instead of breaking it up into multiple parts like this. So if you can support me and you'd like to see these videos improve as well as just continue. Oh god, this is a depressing thought. Then you can follow the link in the description below to my Patreon page where patrons will receive early ad-free access. And because I don't have enough patrons as of recording this video is brought to you in part by Audible. You may have noticed I don't have a ton of sponsors, and a huge part of that is I won't promote a product that I don't believe in. But Audible is a legit product that's useful for everybody, but helpful to prop makers in particular. I am an embarrassingly slow reader, and prop making demands your entire visual focus. Plus it takes all day. So I end up just not reading. But I can still listen to something while working and consume media that way. Audible is amazing. With Audible, I can consume a book in a few days. So yeah, there's a link in the description to a free trial. And you click that link, it'll help out the channel. Sign up, you can get a free audiobook. I recommend Every Tool a Hammer by Adam Savage. I found that book not only helpful, but also reassuring, because the stuff he has to worry about is the same stuff that I have to worry about. So it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'm on the right path. And they also have Star Wars books. Am I done gluing yet? Are we done? Was that enough dialogue to cover all the gluing footage? Terrible timing these things out, guys. Okay, yeah, so I know that gluing and cutting up the puzzle strips may seem crazy, and you know what? Yeah, you got me. It is. I need a 1/2 inch strip of gray foam for the next step, and I only had 1/4 inch left, and this saves it so I can spend Laura's $3 on the next video. Hey, you want to hear the worst ASMR ever? Yeah. It's like nails on a chalkboard in a lecture hall featuring Tiny Tim. Worst TED Talk ever. I cut off the puzzle segments and glued in hole saw offcuts. I used to use spent thread spools for this step, and I would be using them now. Like, I prefer to use them, but I can't find them. Time to clean the shop. When the glue is set, I place those inside the PVC pipe, and that's how I'm going to do joints for this spot. Oh, hey, I want to mention real quick, you can use a Halloween store skeleton for this. That was another route I considered going down. And it has these interlocking joints that allow its limbs to move so that it's posable, but they hold their position once they've moved. And that's something that you could do if you wanted the droid as a display piece, but I need the thing to move around freely because I plan on puppeteering it using rods and green screen. Because typically I build these props for like a filmmaking type purpose, and this sort of thing will clearly hinder a smooth motion. And the Commando Droids are known for their incredibly smooth acrobatics anyway. And it is more than a little frustrating because I know that using these joints would prevent it from falling over so easily. That original battle droid fell over like 15 billion times. I think the fan film ended up being 6 minutes and it was cut together from 60 minutes of just footage of the thing falling over. Oh no, look out!
Oh my goodness. I hope you filmed that.
I built up the shoulders using spent tape rolls and scrap foam. I didn't do a very good job, so I hid my crimes with a shovel. I mean orange craft foam. Wrong crimes. Oh wait, other prop makers watch this and Grace is a cop. Time to sand off my fingerprints again. How will I get into my phone? So I may not even have to paint that part. Although then it won't look like metal. I don't know, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Next, put the details on the chest plate. You could just draw them on. In fact, that's what I did initially. But I decided to score them and heat form them just because it's a creative choice. I cut a hole for the chest light and covered the jagged foam with, I don't know what it is. It's just a random bit of plastic from my spare lightsaber parts box. I taped a piece of red lighting gel behind it. You can get that real cheap on Amazon. Or I suppose you just take a red Sharpie and cover in a piece of plastic from like any store-bought appliance. I mean the packaging. Or you just get it real cheap on Amazon. Link below. There are also links to all the tools and the materials that I use. I cut a piece of scrap foam to use as a mounting rig to hold in this little LED flashlight. Once I'd finished building that light, I heat formed the score line. What is that light anyway? Like, what purpose is that, sir? Stars, explain to me why the Commando Droids have a red light. Make this video, because I don't have time to read Star Wars Wikia. I heat formed the score lines, and that's how you make the torso. Still kind of feels like half a video though. So I decided to work on the lower spine portion. I wanted to cut 4 elongated triangles, just like that would have been the easy thing to do, but I can't because like all of my roommates, the droid animators hate my guts. So let's do some geometry. I figured out this sloping edge. I'm not gonna say this is exactly what it is because there's a lot of rubbery animation going on here. It's just this is what looks right to me. And from it, I made a half stencil, which I was then able to use as a mirror image to make the back and front plates, as well as just that half stencil for the side plates. I also used it to do some rough guesswork to make that center ridge. I glued all those pieces together, then I made horizontal cuts in order to segment the structure. It's not ideal to make these cuts after the whole thing is built. Like in my mind, I was just gonna shove this through some kind of a saw, but that would be so dangerous. How did he die? I foamed a miter saw. Be the weirdest death ever. But here I am. I've made the decision. Now I have to live with the consequences. It'll all be fine. Jeez. I sanded the rough edges on my belt sander. I made the spine from a section of conduit that doesn't flex easily, but at the same time is not totally rigid. Oh, hey, by the way, I've seen the same conduit on close-up shots of spaceship wreckage in Lost in Space, and that's what took me out of the movie. Store-bought plumbing parts. Prop makers, ruining movies for everyone. And that's how you make the Commando Droid body. I think I'm gonna save the paint process for the final video, otherwise I'm just gonna be covering that same step over and over again. In the meantime, feel free to like and subscribe, check out past content, and keep an eye out for part 3 of this droid build, which should be posted in the next few weeks. Or right now, if you're watching this in the future. Ooh. Because apparently everyone in the future is a spooky ghost. And that's how we're ending the video. If I could use the bungee cord somehow. Oh! Apparently not.